Hello, everybody, and thank you so much for joining us today for our webinar. It is 4 o'clock, so I think we're going to go ahead and get started. So to get everybody started, I'd like to introduce myself along with Brianna Kua. She is the Director of Marketing and Brand Communications for Maker Maven. So if any of you follow us on social media or subscribe to our newsletter and see those great STEM challenges that we put out, or some great interactive content on our social media platforms, we have Brianna to thank for that. My name is Matt Garcia. I am co-owner of Maker Maven along with my wife, Jamie. We started this business back in 2016 to really try and help our educators really get the grasp of how to utilize STEM and STEAM in their libraries, in their classrooms, how to get good family engagement in STEM and STEAM kind of across the board. So we're very happy that where we are today and are able to put on webinars like this for you. So before we get into the main part of the presentation, why all of you are here to hear about Bloxels, I want to cover a few housekeeping rules. So we encourage you to use the chat box. Now, when you're using the chat function, make sure the little arrow, the little caret there is toggled to all panelists and all attendees, so we can see everything that you're writing back and forth, so we can respond to questions as they're happening live. So, and don't hesitate to give us your feedback, tell us your thoughts about if something jumps out at you, or if you have any questions for our speaker today. If you have any questions that you don't feel like need to be answered right now at the moment, please feel free to drop them in the Q&A section. We will take some time after the main presentation to answer those questions. And again, please don't hesitate, don't be shy. We want this to be as interactive and as fun for everybody as possible. And follow us on social media, Twitter and Facebook at Maker_Maven, and continue the conversation from this presentation as well. We want to hear your feedback. We want to hear what you're doing, how you're utilizing Bloxels, whether you're at home, distance learning, or you're doing some kind of hybrid learning. But I think we're going to learn a lot of great things on how Bloxels can fit into your school and help your students as well. So with all that being said, I want to welcome our special guest today. So James Macanufo, he is with Pixel Breast, who is the creator of Bloxels. He's going to speak with us today, teach us a little bit about what they're doing, what they've done, and what they're going to be doing. And you can follow them on social media at Bloxels as well. So with that being said, I'm going to turn it over to you, James.
Sounds great. Thanks, Matt. And good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for making time to come here and hang out. I do want to, thanks for making the time for me. I was looking back about a year from now. Bloxels is a small company, so a lot of us do a lot of different things. And one of the hats that I wear sometimes is going out to shows. And I had just gotten back from Maine, from Augusta, Maine, a beautiful place, and was getting ready to head to MassQ about this time of year last year, which seems like a world ago, you know, when we all got together in person. I think a big chunk of that was indoors. So it was kind of an interesting kind of look back. That was a year ago. And so it's nice to be able to connect like this. I do want to emphasize, just like what Matt said, which is, let's keep this candid. Definitely keep an eye on the chat. Very curious. Whatever you're interested in is what I'm interested in talking about. I definitely have a couple of things I'd like to share. And actually, I'll go ahead and switch over to sharing the screen now. I'm going to share my whole desktop. So let's see where we go from here. Just a little bit more about my background. I was a fan of the company and the idea of kids making their own video games before I started working here. I don't know if any of you had come across the Star Wars version of Bloxels, but I came on to help with that and work with Lucasfilm. But I stayed because of the things that I was seeing students create and teachers create with Bloxels. I thought it was just super interesting, and have stayed and helped formulate the new version of Bloxels, Bloxels EDU. I said I wear a lot of hats. I also do a lot of support. So if you ever send an email in with a particular question about how to do something, chances are I might answer. And then I also help formulate, based on what you all ask about and what your students ask about and all the cool things they want to do, I help formulate like the next features of Bloxels. So, you know, all that's fair game. If you got questions or thoughts you want to share today, feel free to drop them in the chat and we can talk about them as they come up or at the Q&A at the end. Today, I just wanted to share a couple things. In case there's anybody who's never seen it or come across it before, just a little bit of kind of the basics of Bloxels, the concepts, what it looks like from the student's perspective, from the teacher's perspective. And I really want to just kind of showcase a couple of things that I've seen students make, especially recently in their classwork that I think are really super interesting. And then, you know, kind of use that to highlight the things that we hear from folks like you all in terms of what students are learning and practicing when they build games with Bloxels. And then lastly, of course, you know, how do we implement it? So, you know, so what's something we could go do right now, kind of an easy low stakes or even up to sort of more advanced ways that we're seeing teachers use Bloxels and implement it in the classroom, both remotely and in person now, or in some cases, like at my kids' school, a little bit of both. So that'll be an interesting conversation. Very interested to hear. You might have your own stories that you'll want to share about what you've been doing with it or seen done with it. So that's where we're headed. I'll keep an eye on the chat, and yeah, otherwise feel free to interrupt me anytime. And Matt, keep me honest on time and that kind of thing. So I will go ahead and play this quick video here that gets kind of the basic points across about Bloxels. So if you haven't seen them before, there's kind of the boards and blocks, which kids can use to make their own characters. A lot of them will start with characters because they have a character in mind, and then they capture it with the app. And then once they've captured it with the app, they can pretty much just press a button and immediately start playing a game with it, whether that's a test game just to test out their character, or if it's you know, something that they've started to build themselves. So it starts with the boards and blocks, and then it moves into the app. I want to just say, like, for a lot of young kids, you know, like your first graders and second graders, just building a character and bringing it into that digital realm is enough for them to feel like they've made a game, that they have, you know, some competencies, that they have the confidence that this is something that they can do. And of course, then it kind of goes up from there. We like to say that we have a low floor and very high ceilings, and then wide walls. So, you know, your middle schoolers will build whole games with it. They'll, you know, spend an entire semester working on a project where they've customized everything about their game and told the whole story or demonstrated what they were researching, that kind of thing with their games. So that's the basics of it. Of course, you can do everything without the boards and blocks as well. You can just do it with the app itself, which has been, of course, a big theme for us since about the spring, when suddenly people wanted to use Bloxels, but they weren't sure how to do it without the boards and blocks. Everything that you can do with the boards and blocks, you can also do just with the app. It just doesn't have as much of that tangible component, kind of the light bright effect, as what people like to tell us. I would like to show off a couple of student games here. So I'm going to actually switch over to the app. I am using the Mac version. We do have a Mac version now. We say it's in beta because you know, we're still kind of making sure that it's super stable, but enough people have asked for the Mac build that we've made it available. So if you want to try it out, it's on our download page. I'm sure we can get you the link if it's too far for Google to reach. But I like to play on the Mac build. It's also can be played through the web on Chrome, which a lot of people are doing on their Chromebooks. If they can't install it natively on Chromebooks, through the Google Play Store, which in some cases, you know, the newer Chromebooks, you know, do have that access. But anyway, glad to answer questions about that. And of course, we're still on the other stuff, iOS and Android and Kindle. So right now we are featuring some Halloween games. So if you've seen any spooky games, or your students maybe are making some spooky games, we've been collecting them all month. And one of my favorite things, and the thing that keeps me coming back, is just this, to see just how surprisingly good some of these games are. Some of these kids, I'm like, how long did you work on this? It's just phenomenal, the kinds of games they're making. But I did want to call out some more sort of what I think of as like the show what you know type games. So here's one called Healthcare Trivia, which a parent sent us. And their daughter, we did get permission to share this, put together this. It's a quiz game where you go through and you're learning about, you're basically answering kind of a Quizlet kind of style game where if you get the wrong answer, if you go down the wrong pipe, I don't know when the NHS was founded. Oh, okay, that was the wrong answer. So I went down the wrong pipe, but it was apparently it was A. So this student created essentially the quiz, this playable quiz, to demonstrate what she had researched about the NHS and healthcare in general. We've seen definitely a trend of more sort of games about quarantine and sort of students telling their own personal stories about what it's like for them right now, which is really interesting. In addition to kind of the oh, that sound effect was really loud. So here comes another quiz. Is healthcare on the UNICEF Bill of Rights paper? Anybody know? Oh, I just said yes. Okay. I guess I got the right answer on that one. I'm going to back out of this game. So that's the kind of game we call a drop quiz, which is something we didn't recommend that people do that, but we just saw that was one of the things that emerged. Students and teachers started building their own games like that as ways to kind of show knowledge. Here's another one. I like this one. I just found this one the other day. This is a game about the body systems made by a student, and you play as I think you're playing as a white blood cell.
Looks like we might have accidentally dropped James here. So we're going to give him just a couple minutes to get back on. In the meantime, does anybody have any questions? I saw Christina had a question that we're going to answer at the end of the Q&A, wanting to know if Bloxels can be used on the Chrome browser through the iPad. So I think that'll be a good question for James at the end. So anybody have any questions up until this point?
Hey.
All right, here we go.
Hey there. Sorry about that. I don't know what happened to my computer. It just went dark. So, but I am back now. What did I miss?
All righty. Oh, nothing. I was just seeing if anybody had any questions up until this point until we were able to get you back on track.
Yeah.
So I know we have one question, but we'll save that till the end here.
Are you sure? Okay. Age groups pricing works on Chromebooks. Oh, good. Okay, good ones. We can answer all those. Let's see. Am I back to? Can you see? Look at some student games.
Yes, we can.
Great. Okay, so we're back. So I wanted to show off a couple of those student games because I think that I like to start with the end in mind and just showing like here's some of the things that they're making that they're making possible with Voxels, and I'm just constantly amazed by the diversity of things that they make and just the depth that they go to. So that was all in the arcade, by the way, which is a public space that the students can share their games to. Essentially, when they're ready and when the teacher decides that they're ready, you can turn this on and off if you don't want them to have access for some reason. I believe by default it's on. Then they can share their game, and essentially they'll have a web link, that a URL that they can share with anybody about this game they made. So a couple of things that we do here when people are like, okay, so what? They're making these video games? What are they learning? Or in some cases, what are they practicing? And the things that we hear from the teachers who've really taken it pretty far is, obviously they show what they know. So this is if you're in any kind of like project-based learning environment, or looking for an alternative medium for students to express themselves in, whether that's the result of a project or just sharing a personal narrative, they can definitely use games as medium. So they can show what they know. They can, in the same way that they would write a report, they can make a game. The 4Cs, I think this one's all there because when they're making games, they're often doing it as a team. So it forces them to, or gives them an opportunity to communicate and collaborate, certainly demonstrate some creativity. The one thing that I think sets video games apart from some other mediums is teamwork really does play such a big part, especially in the real world, where real game studios involve as many people who work on a film or more across a number of different disciplines. The same thing applies with Bloxels and making games. Some of the most amazing games are actually made by 2s and 3s. So pairs of students who work together, so they'll divide the work however they like, or sometimes teachers will sort of give them roles to choose from. So you can be the narrative designer, you can be the artist, maybe you're the level designer, you design the layout itself, and then the other person writes the story, and so forth. And obviously, yes, just to express themselves. So I think, this has been especially a concern lately, which is, I think, I hear it certainly from a lot of parents as well as teachers, which is, there's just all this screen time now, especially for students who are remote. How do we make the best use of that screen time that they do have, whether it's, to create something to share, so that it's not just doing like skill and drill games or another Zoom call. Like what's something that can bring a new dimension to all the screen time we're spending together. And this is games are certainly a medium that when students create in can help out with that. Note, this is something that's come up a lot, because early on in Bloxels, people said, oh, is this for coding? And we were like, well, not really. It's not, you're not learning JavaScript from it. You're not learning Python from it, which is absolutely a valid skill. It's something that's important and a lot of students want to go down that track. But I just want to point out that it's not required to make a Bloxels game. It's not required to make a video game. In the same way that writing a story or creating a painting doesn't necessarily require creating a word processing program or making the canvas yourself. The video games themselves are just a medium that, with our point of view, is a video game is a medium that kids can create in. So it's not really about coding. It does make a good pre-coding activity. So to give them the confidence before going down that path and learning some deeper computer skills, I think it does make a good introduction. I mean, we even see it used in college courses, in introduction to game design courses, because it doesn't have that high entry, that high bar of entry. So I can talk about how it works, but I do want to pause and just kind of check on the questions real quick. Matt, how are we doing? No new questions?
All right. We had the one question asking if Bloxels can be used on the iPad, but through the Chrome browser.
Oh, so I have not personally tried that. On the iPad, we definitely recommend the native app because like we've tried, like it's not designed necessarily for mobile Safari or for the mobile browsers. It works best on I can tell you on my laptop, it works great on the Chrome browser, but not necessarily, I couldn't tell you personally on the iPad on the browser, because for the iPad, we really optimize for the app itself. I'm curious though, is that to avoid installing the app? I feel like there's more to that one maybe.
Yeah, I'm curious as well. Christina, if you just want to type that message in the chat, are you looking just to avoid adding any different applications to the iPads?
Or maybe like a permission.
Oh, okay, you weren't aware of the app. Okay, I see.
Oh yeah.
Okay. All right, perfect. And it looks like we have somebody else raising their hand to ask a question. So Curtin Sally, if you want to just type your question in the chat, and then we will answer that as it comes in.
Okay, I'm going to switch back to the app because wanted to go and show off a little bit of the builder here. I'll come back to the chat in just a second. I am curious how many people are already familiar, roughly already familiar with these things, or if for some people it's brand new. Okay. I'll tell you what, I will keep an eye on the chat. Oh, there it is. So, yeah, heard about Bloxels, but never tried. Gotcha. Well, let me show a couple of things just real briefly from the student perspective, what it looks like for them. Some of this might be new to people because we're always adding features. You know, we used to have the older app, which was retired in 2018, was Bloxels Builder, and we relaunched what we called, you know, Bloxels EDU, which now is just the Bloxels app for simplicity at that point. And you know, a lot of the features have stayed the same. Some of the core concepts have stayed the same, but we've added a bunch of features, which I'll just call out because I think they're interesting from a student perspective. The basic things that haven't changed is the 13 by 13 board and 8 colors. I said that students will often start by building their own character because they already have a character in mind, either a remix of a character from some other game or story, or, you know, of course, some character they've been carrying around in their own sketchbook. It seems like a really good entry point. Anybody can kind of build a character on the board. And then they often will move into actually designing the game layouts themselves. And this is where color takes on meaning. So each color has a built-in behavior. You can make them look like however you want in the app, but how they behave is coded to their color. So with kids, it's enough to usually say green is ground and red is lava, and then they kind of figure out the rest from there. But you know, green is terrain, red is hazards. So for example, yellow is collectible like a coin, but in the game, it doesn't have to be a coin. It can be any kind of collectible you want that fits your story. Along those lines, the white block is the story block. That's the block that allows them to put text into their games. So it allows them to tell stories. And by story, I mean, it can be as simple as, you know, they have 3 blocks, and one's the beginning, one's the middle, and one's the end, kind of like they would do on a storyboard. Or it can be more elaborate, kind of like some of the games I was showing in the beginning. These layouts then become games that can be quite big in size, that then go up again. This is kind of like powers of 10 to this 13 by 13 layout, where we see, like I said, the middle schoolers or even early high school start to build these really, really elaborate maps. So everything kind of fits inside that 13 by 13 grid. We have explored the idea of removing that constraint, but we're a little bit concerned about that because it's something we'd really want to test a lot, because we do believe that constraints can really drive creativity. And if it's just an infinite canvas, I don't know, it might be kind of strange. So I'll flip over to the app real quick just to give an idea of kind of like what that creation experience is about, and then come back and see if that leads to any more specific questions. So I started in the arcade, and this is where your students or kids would come to actually publish their games, which is kind of a fun process, but that's when they're done with them. In the beginning, if they're starting just in the app, so say they're working remotely, they might start by building a character. There's 4 different kinds of things that they can build. Here's some characters that are already in my library that I've made. I maybe want to, you know, I could edit the pigeon. I could make a new character, but I think one of the things that's interesting is if I make a character, I can also share it with my class. And by class, I mean any group, any meaningful group that you want to put them together in. So it might be a team. Basically, this is where they can exchange art that they've made. So you could make a character and share it to the class library. I could make a character and share it to the class library, and we could use them in each other's games. So that's how that works. And then there are asset packs as well. Asset packs are essentially art made by us, and they're free, and we just make them available for teachers to put into their classrooms. So they're in different themes. We are often looking for things that both make for really neat games, but also are potentially useful for things like, you know, say Egypt. Egypt was a popular request because everybody does some sort of ancient world type of unit. And so it's useful to have things like sand to use instead of, and so forth, so that the students can focus on creating their stories and not just on creating things like dirt and so forth. So, so there's basically the character builder. If I wanted to, I could also give my character, certainly, you know, this is a single frame, but I could animate it. I could give it a walking animation, a jumping animation, a falling animation. And then if I wanted to, I could add superpowers too. So like I could make my character really big, really fast. I could give it different flying abilities. So maybe I'll make this a flying dragon. And so now I'm slightly big and I can kind of float, which kids think is really neat. I think it's really neat because then you can have your character kind of change as they go through their game or their story, which is important for game purposes for sure, but also for stories. If you think about a character changing across a story arc, the classic example is like the hungry caterpillar. Like at the end, they might get a power up that then changes them into the butterfly. That's one of those neat little features that we think that kind of it's very open-ended. Like kids do some interesting stuff with it. And then on the game builder side, and then I'll flip back over to the chat and see if anybody has any questions. Here's an Honest Abe game that we made. Game builder looks a little bit different. This is kind of it's bigger because there's more things to see. And then I'm going to flip over here and see, these are all the different colors that are in play. So green is ground. Orange is an action block. I didn't talk about those before, but I can go ahead and test it. Action blocks you can pick up and move around. So for Honest Abe here, we made it his hat. So I can pick up my hat and I can throw it, I guess. I don't know. And I'm going to talk to Mary Todd. She's reminding me to take my hat. Okay. And, this is kind of the idea of a more like sort of instructional game where you're playing through these little factoids and things. It's just a way to bring that otherwise sort of rote knowledge to life. It's kind of fun. So basically, if they were to build a game, then this is where they would do that, is in the game builder. And then there's also art, which is a lot like characters, and then backgrounds. The art is things like these logs. So I could decorate these logs however I wanted. I change them to, let's see. Maybe I'll put a snake in the game, actually. I'll go ahead. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to add an enemy, and I'm going to decorate it as a snake. And there's Honest Abe and the snake. Okay. I don't know what version of history that makes sense in, but it's still kind of fun. Okay, so that's an idea of what it's like for them inside the builder. They can share the games with each other as well to kind of test them with each other, which is something we encourage. And they can also sort of collaborate that way as well. So I might work on the characters for a game while someone else is working on the layout. And then we would kind of bring them together through the class library. So I'm going to switch back over here. Just checking on the chat. This is perfect timing. Just found out we received funding from Middle School Makerspace. Curious if it would make a useful addition. Cool. That's great to hear. Kimberly, you've been exploring Bloxels with your kids. I'd be very curious if you have any questions or observations so far, for sure. Well, while I'm keeping an eye on that, I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next section, which is in terms of actually really implementing it remotely or in person. Some of these things may be new, some of these things may be old, but there is what we call the EDU hub, which is from the teacher's perspective, where you would go to log in and essentially manage all things about your students. I know that sounds really fun. The fun part is actually being able to see all in one place what they're making, what they're writing. You can go into the hub and actually play their games. You can print out a PDF of everything they've written inside a game. You can send them messages. And of course, download the resources that we have available as well. One of the newer resources we've put up there, this is something that we started putting together back in the spring, and we're always looking for ways to add to it, but it's essentially online learning ideas. So we've always had a script for a game jam, which is something we've seen clubs do, but also happen in in other classes like gifted classes and that kind of thing, where you take 5 days and you can spread those 5 days out however you like, and it's a framework for creating a game jam. And so we adapted that to a virtual game jam. There are other places you can take this, like depending on how public you want to be about it, how much you want to, or your students want to, or are comfortable sharing their work. There are other platforms online where this is really popular. and it can really get their work out there, and get them lots of cool feedback. So this online guide is something that's available in the hub. So we talk about the virtual game jam, but then we also, that's kind of a more advanced thing. We also talk about some simpler sort of one day or standalone activities as well that can be done as easily online as they can be in person. A lot of what kind of backs up the game jam approach, and then just kind of a lot of our philosophy in general, is a design thinking approach. So games, I think, are a great way to practice this. There are different representations of different design thinking processes. This is just ours that we like to use, which starts by empathizing, taking on the role of your player. This game you're making is for someone. What is it like to be a player? And there are exercises that go along with that in terms of like going out and playing other games on the arcade and making notes and talking about your notes on them. And then moving through a design process essentially after that, which leads to iterative building and testing of your game with your peers, and then finally publishing it or implementing it by publishing it to the arcade. So these are the kind of resources and the direction of resources that we're focused on. Really, again, making it about creating the games and expressing your ideas, but also by using a method at the same time, and one that will carry over into other areas of their life and other disciplines, is our hope. So that's all inside the hub. The other stuff that you can find inside the hub are the student workbooks and EDU handbook. We also have paper versions of the workbook, but once everything went virtual back in the spring, we decided to make those available just broadly in a digital format. And those contain things that even before coming across or even before opening the app, just planning out a story, just some visual guides and planning guides for turning your idea for a game into a plan for a game. And one of the things we love to see is when students really go crazy on this, and they just write down their notes, and they mark it up and put sketches all over these things. They become just these really living artifacts, which are so wonderful to see. So those are available as PDFs in the hub, as is kind of what you would expect in the EDU handbook, some more traditional kind of classroom activities, which we've aligned to standards, the ISTE standards and the NGSS standards. So those were actually written by educators, real life classroom educators. So and the idea here is they do work off the shelf, but I think in most cases they serve as inspiration for other people to say like, oh, okay, this is a good spark. I know how to now take this and adapt it for what I want to do. That's just a couple other things, and then I think I kind of want to open it up for just Q&A and thoughts. When it comes to assessment, that is something we get asked about occasionally, like how do you assess a good Bloxels game and so forth. And we talk about collaboration in the 4 Cs. What do we recommend in terms of rubrics and that kind of thing? Here are 2 of them that have come up or been recommended to us by other educators, and one in particular done by a teacher in Montreal who specifically said, here's the rubric that I use for my Bloxels games, and it's about what you would expect. It's all at the very one end of the spectrum. Students have tried to use all the different game elements, and then it kind of proceeds up through different layers of application after that. If I could leave with kind of one thought on implementation, it's to start small, and a great introduction activity is just to have students create their own avatars. So who am I? What is my pixel art version of myself? It's just like the perfect bite-sized activity, an introduction for them. It also kind of gets them started on the idea of, well, now what's the story that I can put this character in? They can change their avatar in the app to this pixel art character that they create. And yeah, it's just wonderful seeing them, express who they see themselves as in pixels. Whether they go literal with it, or if they decide to make themselves into like a werewolf. We've definitely seen that. It's all wonderful, and there's no wrong way to do this activity. So yeah, those are some of the things just wanted to share. A little bit of what Bloxels is, some cool things students have made with it, and where we're headed with our resources, especially in a remote time. So Matt, I think you know what? I just realized my camera's been off. I'll turn that back on if you like, and I will stop screen sharing, and we can kind of go from there.
Sure thing. All right. So for some questions, I did see it pop up a little bit earlier. So it looks like Katie Price is currently in a hybrid program and had a question about any suggestions you have for sanitizing of the blocks.
Oh, sanitizing of the blocks. So I am not, I do not have scientist approved methods for that, but I would say any kind of, the same way you would clean Legos, basically by immersing them. This is what we do when we come back from game jams, because we have a large amount of blocks. We will immerse them in a big tub filled with like a light bleach solution, like basically what you would clean your dishes with, or like, and maybe you wouldn't clean your dishes with this all the time, but like a human safe bleach solution, and soak them and then let them out to dry. That's what I recommend, because that's what we used to do.
Sure. And there is another question from Heidi Bushway Berkler, wanting to know about suggested age groups, pricing, and if Bloxels can be used on Chromebooks.
Yes. So I will answer those in reverse order and try not to forget the first one as I do that. Is that okay?
Perfect.
So on Chromebooks, yes. There are a couple of different. There's a little bit of nuance to that. First of all, there is a native app for Chromebooks. If you can install it through the Play Store or get your tech director to approve installing it through the Play Store. So it's the native Android app that can be installed on Chromebooks. If your Chromebooks aren't new enough to support that, or for some reason that won't work for you, you can always just pull up the Chrome browser and go to build.bloxels.co and play it through there. Basically play it through the web. I will say the caveat is, when playing through the web version does not have access to the device's camera, so the capture function doesn't work on the web version. I hope that was enough of an explanation without an over explanation. In terms of pricing, we do have different pricing models, and depending on if you want to do something small or something at a school level or larger, there are different kind of tiers. But we generally base it on like, a group of 25 to 50 students using it at any given time. And that's the folks at Maker Maven can totally help you with all of that. And age groups. So I think I might have said earlier, we shoot to have a low floor and a high ceiling. So and I know that's, it sounds like a rainbow answer, but we really do think that there's something for all age groups in it. They're just different things. So I do think that kindergartners are.
Uh-oh. Might have lost James again. Alrighty, so let's see here. Any other question? Oh, James is still here. Let's see what happened.
It looks like he's an attendee now.
All right. All right, let's get him back on here. All right, perfect. All right, James, looks like I got you back.
Wow, that was weird. My screen changed. So sorry about that. So we just think that, I think I left off at kindergartners are a little young. They can definitely use it with the help, like it's an assisted activity for them. They, for most of them, they need a little bit of hand holding with it. But by the time you get to first and second grade, they can make characters. By the time you're in third and fourth grade, you start to see the students really unlock all the features. And beyond that, it's, middle school is really that's where we see some of the most fantastic games. They're just they're much deeper. There's a lot of expression. They spend more time on it. That's kind of their jam. So I hope that answers that question.
I think so. And then looks like we had another question in the chat about the frame can be immersed for cleaning as well. And I would assume that that would be fine if the blocks are able to be immersed in that bleach solution.
Yes.
All
Yep.
right.
There's nothing electronic in them or anything. They're just they're cleanable.
Alrighty. Perfect. Unless I missed any other questions in the chat, any last minute questions that anybody has, please feel free to pop them in there right now while we still have James here. All right. Well, if nobody has anything else, I want to definitely go ahead and thank James for joining us today, helping us learn a lot more about Bloxels, seeing how they can be used kind of across all different aspects of how we're teaching now, hybrid, at distance, or in person. You know, of course, we all want to be back to in-person teaching. And thank you, everybody, for putting up with our minor technical glitches here today, as I'm sure all of you educators are still currently dealing with a lot of the same functionality issues that, you know, with your at-distance classes using Zoom calls and things like that. So again, James, thank you so much for being here today. Please remember to follow Bloxels at Twitter, and that's at Bloxels. Anything else you want to add here, James?
No, I just thank you guys for spending the time with us today. And yeah, it's nice to connect even in this medium this way. So yeah, everybody have a good afternoon.
All right, perfect. Thank you so much. So there's a few last minute takeaways that I kind of wanted to point out here from James's presentation. So 3 things that are pretty cool. So video game design, it's not the same as learning to code. So I think you can use a huge different skill set and make it a little bit more accessible for students of all ages. What skills do you or students practice when making a game? Always great things to keep in mind. And then Bloxels can be used easily, remotely, or in person. I think that's more important now than ever, seeing as how we are kind of so split on how each school, each district, each state is going about learning at this time, is that knowing that we still have a tool available that can be used for all of our students. And again, my name was Matthew Garcia, and thank you, Brianna, for helping us out today. So we are Maker Maven. We're here to help you add to or maybe start a new STEM program, makerspace, Fab Lab, or whatever you're looking to call it. Or maybe you don't want to put a name on it and you just want to try something new for your students. We're happy to help. So please feel free to contact us at any time by giving us a call at 877-625-3775, or that's 877-MAKER75. You can always visit us on our website at makermaven.net, or email us at orders@makermaven.net or info@makermaven.net. And if you have your device, your cell phone or your tablet handy right now, you'll see on your screen there should be a little QR code on the bottom right-hand side. If you scan that code, it will take you to our digital catalog, so you don't have to filter through the website all the time. We try to keep it as updated as possible. We'll always have an updated date listed at the bottom of that front page on the catalog. Something you can easily bookmark and have at your fingertips to know what our newest offerings are, current pricing, you know, if things go on sale, or just if you're looking to browse and see what there is to add to your current space, or if there's tools that we can use to help you facilitate at-distance learning as well. And again, thank you all so much for joining us today for this webinar. We will be sending out the certificates for the 1-hour professional development credit that you can turn in for your PD credits probably sometime tomorrow. And if you want to refer back to this presentation at a later date, it is being recorded and it will be on our YouTube channel tomorrow. And I see Brit just added a link to the chat there to our YouTube channel. So please feel free to go ahead and like and subscribe on there, because if, you know, we know you don't always have the time to dedicate to sit down into a 1-hour live webinar, but we still want to make that information accessible to you as much as possible. So please go to YouTube, subscribe, turn on the notifications. So anytime we upload a brand new video, whether it's a webinar or if we do anything else fun in the future, you'll be notified and you can find that. I do want to add one little caveat though. We are not able to provide the 1-hour professional development credit certificates if you only watch the recorded version. You do need to be a live participant to receive those credentials. So tons of different places where you can follow us and find more information on Maker Maven. So www.makermaven.net. On social media at maker_maven, or contact us at info@makermaven.net or orders@makermaven.net. We do great blogs. We do monthly STEM challenges, very active on Twitter. And again, these are all going to be recorded webinars on our YouTube page. So please feel free to reach out to us at any time. And again, want to thank James and Brianna for joining us today. We're so happy that we're able to do these for our educators. So if anybody has any other questions, please feel free to jump in, or please click on the link in the chat here. We do have our next webinar scheduled with a brand new partner, Kai's Clan. So they are a awesome coding and robotics company that adds some augmented reality components to coding and robotics. So our students don't actually have to be in the same room as the robots they're coding, so they can actually still see their robots fully functioning and performing the tasks that they're creating. So I highly suggest registering for that as soon as possible. We're going to be doing some awesome giveaways as well. So please take a look into that. That being said, that's all I have for you today. And again, thank you so much for joining us.